What is up, YouTube? It is Mr. Rolldaddy here, and right now, heading into a huge game. It is time for me to do another Iowa Hawkeyes football analyst, as this week, my Hawkeyes are taking on the second in the country ranked Ohio State Buckeyes. Now, every week, I try to find some thoughts in which I can find a way to see how Iowa could win a game. Now, this one had a lot of thought to it, and this one was the most difficult one yet. But I'm still doing this, as this is a still fun project I am doing based off of the school I love and attended. Now, before I get started on anything, as always, I just want everyone to remember that all views in this video are completely of my own. They don't represent the University of Iowa, the Big Ten Conference, any media outlet, coach, player, student, university official, or anyone or anything that is otherwise affiliated. I am just doing a fun side project here. So all views which are expressed in this video are completely of my own. Let's get going. Alright, let's get going here. It's the battle of the eyes in the Big Ten Conference this week. The Hawkeyes and the Buckeyes. Week 8. Both teams are now officially halfway through their season. So let's get going here. Now, my basic roll key for this week. It's happened before. 5 years ago, one of the greatest days of my life happened. Iowa beat Ohio State 55-24, and I was just right in the front row of the student section. Rushed the field after that game. It was so amazing. This can absolutely happen again, and you know, I'm not just pointing to my previous experience as an Iowa guy, and Iowa beat Ohio State, but many years ago, an unranked Illinois team took down number 1, that's right, number 1 ranked Ohio State in Columbus. Sometime in the 2000s, and you know, given that Iowa's done this, given that Illinois has done this, and last year, Michigan did that against Ohio State. So, remain hopeful. This can absolutely happen again. Now, my first offensive roll key. Attack the linebackers. Ohio State runs a cover 3 defensive scheme. There are some moves for the defensive linemen that come from this type of scheme. So, because they use a lot of defensive backs in coverage, and they're all over the field. So, in the passing game, go and attack the linebackers. As I do believe the most open space in the passing game for Iowa this weekend is going to be in the middle of the field against some linebackers. That's the position of interest that Iowa must attack. Now, here's another big thing. Use the tight ends in the passing game. Yes, of course, Iowa always, or nearly always does, because Iowa is such a big tight end school. But what I saw, looking back at that 2017 game, tight ends were used to the advantage. I mean, the 2 first-round NFL draft pick tight ends, Noah Fant and T.J. Hawkinson, both of them scored 2 touchdowns on Ohio State's vaunted defense in that game. I remember Fant in that game just celebrated right in front of me with some of his teammates when he scored one of those touchdowns. And that is one other thing I'll never forget about that game. But in all seriousness, though, Sam Laporte and Luke Lachey, if guys are going to get touchdowns this weekend, it should be those 2 guys. Because, remember, Stanley threw 5 touchdowns against Ohio State. And when Nate did that, well, he used 4 of those touchdowns to tight ends. So, 80% of his touchdown throws that game went to the tight ends. This can be a good chance to get the tight ends open. And that's something Iowa was not afraid to do when they played Ohio State that day. Got the tight ends open. And they didn't just grab some touchdown catches. They also made a few other catches as well. And I know one of those guys had over 100 receiving yards that game. And When Iowa's in the red zone trying to get into the end zone, get the tight ends open. Now, my third offensive role key. I was taking a look at one of their depth charts. Ohio State's got 3 freshman starters on defense. JT Tuimoloau, Michael Hall Jr., and Denzel Burke. There's a lot that says about a team. Well, I should say it really does say a lot about a team when they are starting 3 freshmen. Iowa's offense, they really need to understand that if a team's starting freshmen, especially on the defensive side of the ball, and especially for a big-name school like this, that really is saying a lot about them. They're pretty good if they're starting on defense as a freshman. And so look out for Tuimoloau and Hull to make some moves on the defensive front. And Denzel Burke, he's a defensive back. I mean, he's got a lot of good skill sets to him. Just be looking out for those guys when Iowa is on the offensive side of the ball. Because, again, if freshmen are starting on defense, especially for a high-powered football school, that is saying a lot about how good they are. Now, my fourth offensive role key. Get the rushing game going. I mean, look, the running numbers have not been good for Iowa this year, even though they've gotten a few touchdowns, but yes, Iowa's rushing game has not been good. I think I was reading that it was like ranked 120 something out of like the 128 or however many Division I teams there are. And look, it's a tough defense, but it's a good team to get the running game going against, because if Iowa can at least get the running game in some way going against Ohio State, in some way, that is just going to make a huge statement for Iowa. And look, if Iowa shows marginal improvements in the running game, it's just going to show Iowa is able to get competitive when it matters the most, because this is going to be a competitive game that Iowa is going to really need to show they can be competitive in to remain close in this game. All right, now, my final offensive role key. Put some points on early. I mean, look, I feel if this game gets to 14-0 quickly, it's not going to end up well. But I think if it's 14-3, it gives some glimpse of hope. So, look, whenever Iowa can find a chance to get points, just capitalize on it. Take the points whenever you can. Because, look, this game is really going to be a seesaw battle for Iowa to win. Points in any way, they are going to be good to get. Iowa just has to score those points. Now, my first defensive role key of the week. Finally on the defensive side, and I know this is like the 3rd or 4th straight week I've been saying this, but really just keep up the success. I mean, well, okay, I accidentally typed a 56 there instead of a 6, but all right. Yes, 59 points allowed in the first 6 games. It's just 9.83 points per game so far, and that's just amazing. It's the same as last week again. I mean, and the week before, and I think maybe even the week before, maybe even the week before that. This is a great feat. Iowa just can't be satisfied. They don't want to let up, because if Iowa keeps up this performance on defense, they can be a historically dominant defensive unit that people will remember for generations to come. They've just got to want to be that unit. Now, I really had to put a lot of thought into the defense this week. So, this is easily the toughest offense that Iowa's going to be facing. And I'd say it's the toughest offense Iowa's faced so far in this decade. even tougher than that Michigan team that had loaded offensive stars last year in the Big Ten championship game. Of all games Iowa's played so far in the 2020s, this is going to be the toughest offense they faced. Even Purdue, whose offense just drives me crazy as an Iowa guy. I mean, this is really, really the toughest offense. But I think the first point is, you've got to have as many men possible playing C.J. Stroud. I mean, look, this guy might win the Heisman this year. And if he wins the Heisman, he's got many great reasons why he will win the Heisman. Because, look, I mean, I think he's got like 20-something touchdown throws already. And it's only been 6 games. And, I mean, yes, a lot of those were against lesser teams. But still, if he can throw that many touchdowns already through the first half of the season, it says a lot about him. And he's also a great threat to run. So, my first point is, take away the options for him to make the plays. So, he's going to start out with pressuring him up front, and then you also have to have guys playing behind the defensive linemen to take away the rushing lanes for C.J. Stroud. Which is then going to, I'm going to emphasize this quite a bit this week, because I think this is really going to be a huge point to success, which is going to force C.J. Stroud to throw the ball. Now, in order for that to happen, Miyan Williams, he's a good running back. He's put up some great numbers so far this year. Take away his rushing lanes as well. Have those linebackers and other guys that are playing the quarterback and his running lanes, have them take away the running back's running lanes, because this is also going to allow Iowa's defense to play to its strength of hard-nosed, smash-mouth football, something Iowa does so well. And also, like I have been saying, by doing this and using this strategy, Iowa was going to force Ohio State to pass whenever possible, and it makes them one-dimensional offense, takes away the two-dimensional parts for what their offense is. Now, my fourth defensive role key. I've been talking about forcing Ohio State to throw the ball. Well, also, the defensive backs just do not leave Marvin Harrison Jr. open. I mean, here's the thing about him. He's a touchdown machine, and his dad is a Pro Football Hall of Famer for a good reason. He had a lot of great seasons playing with Peyton Manning for a reason, because he is just a really good talent, and he showed that over his years in the NFL, and his son is looking a lot like him right now. He's a great playmaker, and now again, I've been talking about taking away the running options for C.J. Stroud and Miyan Williams, but they can also get to Marvin Harrison Jr. That, in addition to forcing a throw, it forces another option to be made by C.J. Stroud. So don't let Harrison get open. Now, my final defensive role key. Mobility in the backfield. I mean, again, the defensive backfield, I mean, it's a strength for Iowa, and it has been for, I'd say, pretty much my entire time as a Hawkeye. And even before that, the defensive backfield has really been a strength for Iowa in the Ferentz years. I could even say the Hayden Fry years, it at least at some points was a good strength for Iowa. And in order for this good strength to work, the defensive backfield, they've got to have some mobility. It's needed for slowing down the weapons Ohio State has got and making plays on the defensive side of the ball. And if Iowa can force Ohio State to force throws, this will also be able to force Ohio State to make mistakes on those forced throws. And two other huge points. This also is needed for creating turnovers and then scoring defensive touchdowns. I mean, first play of the game, 2017, Iowa versus Ohio State. I mean, Monty Hooker just picks off that pass, takes it all the way for a touchdown. Josh Jackson, I mean, I don't remember if he got a touchdown, but I know he had multiple interceptions in that game. One of which in the second half you were able to see me on TV for. And if Iowa can repeat that again, get the turnovers, get the defensive touchdowns, that is going to go a long ways in this game. That is going to be a very tough matchup. Now, time for my X Factor roll key. I guess you could all say this, but Kirk Ferentz is due for a win in Columbus. I mean, he's been the coach of the Iowa Hawkeyes since 1999. Longest tenured Power 5 head football coach there is. And, I mean, he's gone to literally every other Big Ten school in his tenure. And at least once, he has won games on the road against every other Big Ten school there is. He's even done it in Ann Arbor and Madison, which are extremely tough places to play. He's done it in State College, which really is a tough place to play as well. I mean, he's had road games against some of the toughest crowds in college football outside of Iowa and the SEC. And still, even the other schools, like, of course, a lot of these schools have not been powerful football schools compared to a lot of the others on this list, but still, Big Ten football has a lot of fans, and he has still, again, managed against every other school in the Big Ten to go on the road at their stadium and win a football game. Columbus, Ohio, that is the only Big Ten city that Kirk Ferentz has not won a game in. His only 2 wins against Ohio State were in Iowa City. But I mean, again, he just needs to beat Ohio State this Saturday to have 1 win against every other Big Ten school on the road. And I guess you could really say he's just due for it to happen. And hopefully he is due for it here. I really hope so. Now, we've reached that point in the video again. Rolldaddy's Big Roll of the Week. And this is something I do at the end of every video each week. This is either a surprise tactic, a trick play, or an interesting strategy that I would utilize this week if I was an Iowa coach that could catch the opponent off guard and give an advantage to the Hawkeyes. Honestly, this one really, really made me put a lot of thought into this. Because, again, this is arguably the toughest matchup Iowa's had in years, and I'd say this is easily the toughest game Iowa has on their schedule throughout all of the 2020 so far. I'd say maybe even the toughest since they've last played Ohio State in 2017. Though, of course, Iowa has played a lot of really good teams since then, but I had to think long. I had to think hard about what I would be doing this week. And, I do play NCAA football. And on NCAA Football 12, I've got a Hawkeye Dynasty, where I'm the legendary head coach of the Iowa Hawkeyes. And I've been using some custom playbooks, one of which I designed many, many years ago with a lot of interesting offensive formations and schemes. And, I'm going to say this week is going to be a good week for this type of offensive strategy to be used, because Iowa's got to catch Ohio State off guard somehow, and here you go. Use the Emory and heavy formation on offense. Now, yes. Only occasionally, because, this is a really odd scheme. So, there's 3 offensive linemen in front of the quarterback. You have the 2 guards in the center, and then quarterback's got the running back next to him. But then there's a 3x3 on each side. It's 2 wide receivers and on each side of the ball. But the offensive tackles They're not lined up next to the guards at all. They are the inside wide receivers. They're lined up like that. Now, some advantages of this formation, like Iowa can pull off some open runs in the middle because there's just so much open space in the middle of the field in this formation. And another thing that this formation has done well is it's good for some deep passes and screen passes, especially to those receivers. Because look, Iowa has got to cause some sort of confusion for Ohio State to win this game. And I mean, very, very few teams run this type of play, or even from this formation, but just really use this odd formation on offense. I think it might do them a lot. If they use it occasionally, of course. All right. If you've made it this far, I really want to thank you for watching because, look, again, this is a just for fun side project that I do, and I put a lot of thought into these videos, and this one was easily the toughest one yet for me, and I mean, this one took me hours just to think about this, and I really appreciate you watching if you made it this far. Thank you. Have a good night. And go Hawkeyes.